Hello, and it's great to see you all again. I hope you all had a great Christmas and New Year. And we're into 2018 now, and what I wanted to do at the start of this year is talk a little bit about my workflow and how I take my photos and then add them onto my computer, catalogue them in Lightroom, and then some brief editing top tips as well. So these are things that I found over the last few years that have been a massive benefit to me. So I wanted to share them with you, and hopefully you'll find them really useful too. So what I do is, actually, have you seen my new t-shirt? So this was a t-shirt my wife bought me. Apparently I say this quite a bit. I'm not sure I do, but there we go. So what I do is I get back into my studio, take my SD card out, stick it in my computer. And then what I wanted to do is show you what I do once that SD card is in my computer and I transfer those photos onto my hard drive. Okay, so let's have a look at Lightroom now. And the first thing to look at when we're in Lightroom is I set up my Lightroom in years and then quarters. And that I've done, if you look back, since 2002, and it's made it really easy to be able to go back and find things in a really simple way. And in those quarters, then I have the shoots that I go on. So whether that might be a shoot to Scotland, for instance, not just the day, but the whole location of Scotland, or it might just be a shoot where I go one evening to do a sunset. So every folder here is a shoot reflecting a location that I go to take some photos. So for 2018, what I need to do is I need to go and create a new folder. And I'm going to go and find where I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do that in my folder here on my external hard drive, and click new folder and call it 2018 and click create. And then I'm going to go choose 2018. Once I've done that, I've now got 2018 here, and within that I want to then create a folder inside 2018 called Q1. So once I've done that, I have now got a location to be able to import my photos. What I would also say here is that all my photos are stored on external hard drives. The reason I do that is that then if I want to go and edit them on location, or I want to take my hard drive with me, I can download them. My Lightroom catalog is also held on that external hard drive as well, and it means that I can easily edit photos on the go, and then I don't have to worry about copying them when I get back into my studio. I can just plug that hard drive into my computer and everything works okay. Now I do have a backup regime of those photos as well, which I can talk you through towards the end of this video, but it works really well for me, this, and I've linked below the hard drives that I use, which have been really robust for me as well. Okay, so the next thing to do is just click import, and my SD card is now in the computer, and you can see that on that SD card I've got some photos that I've not imported yet from a shoot in the Lake District. So I am going to select those photos, and if you just go and look at the top here, I build the previews of 1:1. The reason I do that is that if I have 1:1 previews, then when I'm looking through them and zooming in to choose which ones to reject and which ones to flag, then there's no lag on that, and it means that I can process it much quicker. I don't import suspect duplicates, so that makes it easier. If I haven't deleted files off my SD card, then they're just grayed out there, and I know that I don't need to import those. Scrolling a little bit further down, I sometimes put keywords in against files if I think that there's keywords that reflect all the files that I'm importing. So in this particular case, then mist is one, water is one, lake is one, trees are one, and that pretty much reflects every image that I've taken on this particular shoot. Now I would also keyword each individual image as well, but I don't use locations in keywords because I find that the geotagging of my photos is a much more effective way to do that. So then once I've done that, I just go and find 2018 folder, Q1, and I am going to call this Rydal Water Lake District. And that is it. So as soon as I've done that, I can click import, and that will then import those files, copy them off my SD card and onto the external hard drive. Okay, so once they've loaded into Lightroom, the first thing I do is I go through and I pick and reject the ones that either I like, I think are pics, or the ones that I don't think I need anymore and I'm going to completely delete. And then other ones I just leave as is. So basically it's either P or X on the keyboard as I go through them. So I usually have it on a medium grey background. The reason that it was on white then is I tend to have it on a white background if I'm editing snow photos, but I have it on a medium grey background if I'm editing most images. So I'll go through and I will look at them and I will decide which I think are a pic. Now the way I do it on this one here is I'd zoom in to full screen. You can see that that one was blurred, so I'm going to reject it. That one's okay, that one's the best of the three, so I'm going to pick that. I quite like that image and I'll probably come back to it. So that I'm going to pick because this was a scouting mission and I want to edit that photo to see what it's like. I've got an idea around it, I'm not too bothered about those people in it. And I do this fairly quickly, so I go through them all. Now, this is an interesting one. This is where I took a panoramic. So if you can just look here, there are that one, and that one. That makes a panoramic. So I'm just going to select those three, right click and photo merge panorama. Now I do this in my first pass because I want to end up, when I've gone through my photos, with a set of pics that I can then go through and rate and edit and start to do more work with and put more metadata on. I don't put any more metadata on until I've picked my images. So that's good. I've done the panoramic and I'm just going to merge that. So once I've done that, then I'm going to have a set of rejected photos, and I can click on this and see what those rejected photos are. I don't do much with those at the moment. What I tend to do is at the end of every quarter, so at the end of Q1, I will look at my Q1 folder and I will delete all my rejected photos. I don't delete them straight away because just in case I've made a mistake, but by the end of the quarter I go back to them and I delete all my rejected photos. And that's really easy to do. You can just click the Q1 folder here and just select the rejected photos, highlight them all and delete them. And it deletes them off the disk as well as from the Lightroom catalogue as well. So once I've done that, I'll just go to the flag, and then I've now got some of my flagged photos from that shoot. Now I might add or remove some of these flagged photos as I'm going through and editing them, but I've got a basic set of flagged photos. The next thing I would do is I would go through and start to edit these photos. Now the way I edit the photos, and I'm not going to, this isn't an editing Lightroom tutorial, but the way I edit my photos tends to be by looking at the presets that I've created, my own presets, and applying some presets to them to see how they might look with those particular presets. So I would go into the develop module, and I've got my user presets here on the left hand side. So I've got drone punch, golden green fields, in the mist, misty, 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 stony overcast, trees in mist, and warm tone blast. And these are the styles of images that I've created in the past that you've probably seen on my Instagram account and on my other photos, that the type of images that I take. So they tend to be misty images or bigger landscapes with stone and rock in them, or ones with green fields in, and this allows me to do quite quick user presets on, which I will then edit a little bit more. So I would go through these and I'd have a look at some of these user presets. So in this one I know that the warm tone blast is something that would look good on this particular image. It picks out some of the details in the highlights, which is good for mist, and it just warms the image up a little bit. So I would then go and have a look at these images and apply to this. Again, on this one I might say trees in mist might be a good change edit for that, and I could have a look at it and see how it is. I would go and do some cropping on them and basically just play around with them and see what I think. When I've done that, when I've cropped them and finalised what my final flagged images are, so, and this is the first quick edit I do on them, so I might say, okay, this image here, when I've looked at it, it was great, but you know, it's actually, I made a mistake there, it's not quite in focus. I might go back to the unfiltered images and find one that is in focus, or I might just go, okay, well, I'm going to unflag that and get rid of it. So now I've got to my final selection of photos for that particular shoot. The next thing I do is I geotag them. So I go onto my map and I would go to where this was, Rydal Water. So these two here, I know I took those down there, so I go and drop them down there. I know that I took this one there, and I'm fairly rough with this. I'm not super accurate with it. I'm just, gives me an idea of where I took them. I took them from that bank, and I took all those three from a similar position as well. So the next thing I would do is I would go in and edit them in a lot more detail than I have done here. And once I'd done that, I would go through and rank them, whether they were 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star. And actually I might not give a star either. So there's almost 4 rankings for each photo. Now, a lot of people like to just flag them or not flag them, but I actually quite like this ranking thing, and it's something I've done since the early 2000s, so probably for the last sort of 17 years, and it's worked really well for me. So on this image here, I wouldn't rank it. On this one, I wouldn't rank it. On this one, I wouldn't rank it. On this one, I'd probably say 3. On this one, I'd probably say 3. This one, I'd probably say 3. This one, 3. And this one, 4 stars. And then I've created a smart collection. And this smart collection you can see here, which is 3, 4, and 5-star photos. And at any time, I can click that, and this will show me over a time period, and I think this is over the last 5 years. I've set this up, a smart collection that has been created that shows me all my 3, 4, and 5-star photos. And I can also look at where my photos that are 3, 4, 5 stars lay on the map. So if I zoomed out on this map, I could see where those particular images were in the Lake District. So that allows me to, if I'm going to a location, to be able to see what I've shot there before. So for instance, at the Rydal Water here, I could go and have a look at those particular images and think, okay, well, what did I shoot at that particular location? Great, okay, I'm gonna go back and reshoot that when the conditions are a little bit better. Okay, so let's go and have a look at some of my shots from Glencoe. So you can see here this in action. So if I just filter and flag it by my flagged photos, you can see here all my flagged photos. You can see that I've tagged some of them, and if I go into develop, then I can also look at, say I wanted to have a look at my 3 and above star photos, I can do that, my 4 and above star photos, and yeah, that's really easy to do now. But say there was a photo I wanted to go and look at in a bit more detail, then it's fairly easy to get to those photos quite quickly. So there's maybe this image here, which is something I think, okay, I want to go and revisit this and edit it. I've always thought I maybe can crop this a little bit better, so I'm going to go and crop it. By the way, top tip if you are cropping is use the O key when you're in the crop mode, because you can put different composition tools on. So I use this quite a lot to try and help my cropping of some composition. So for instance, here I might just want to just crop it with this in mind, just to try and highlight certain elements in my picture and make the crop look a little bit stronger. So yeah, there we go. I've cropped that image now, and I might think when I've cropped it, I might think actually I'm going to up that to a 4. So I press 4 on the keyboard, and that's now a 4-star image. Okay, so whilst I'm just on these Scotland photos here, one of the things that I do, which I find really useful, I just wanted to share with you, which is again part of my workflow process, is that when I've done that first edit on my photos and pick them out, and I usually do this for my 3, 4, and 5 stars, is I print out a contact sheet. So it's really easy to do that. So if I just go to the print module here, I've set up a contact sheet for these 16 images from Scotland. All you need to do is click single image contact sheet, and then you select the images that you want to put on that contact sheet, which I've just selected all the images at the bottom here, and I've said I want it 4x4. You could have it 3x4 or whatever. My page setup is A3, so I usually print it on an A3 bit of paper, and I just make sure that I keep the aspect ratio of the image. So to do that, you just want to make sure that you don't have the zoom to fit. Click there, you just unclick it, which is set as default, and then I print that out, and you get something like this, which hopefully you can see, and it's a really good way of looking at your photos and just looking at them away from the computer. So I find it very, very useful to do, and I definitely recommend doing it. I also sometimes draw on it, and it's a good way of looking at the images together and seeing if the colours match between them, if you're going to do an exhibition or if you're going to display these images on a website, on one page on a website, or in a book or anything else like that. So that then I can think, okay, well, actually when I look at these images now, the tones and the colours of them are quite good, but this image probably doesn't fit in very well to the rest of them. I mean, it isn't representative of my Scotland trip where the sun came out, even though it was nice weather. Really, the rest of them represent the feeling of that trip. So yeah, and then I might think, okay, well, I need some more of this type of image. Can I just go and find some images, if I'm going to put them as a set, that would just balance it out a little bit more? So producing a contact sheet, putting it up on the wall, or just handling it and using it and looking at it is a fantastic way, a really fantastic way of just getting to grips with your images a little bit more. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is how I export these images. So if I go back to the develop module here, if I was going to export an image, so say I was going to export, let's have a look at an image, this one here. So say I was going to export this image for social media, then I would go to File, Export, and then you can see I've got some user presets here. And what I've done is I've set up a number of presets that puts the images in folders. So you can see that I've got the folders set up here, and I set up a folder per year for all my exported images. And in those years, so in 2017, I've got an external printers one, a full res JPEG one, an Insta story one, my website one, print publication, social media, my website images, and YouTube videos, so the images that I use in my YouTube videos. And each one of those has a particular criteria for exporting. So you can see the exterior printer one here is a TIFF image, Adobe RGB, whereas if I go to my social media one, then you can see it's JPEG. I limit the size to 1.5 megabytes, and I resize it to 1080 wide by 1350 high. Now, the reason I do that is that Instagram, where I post most of my social media images, that's the largest resolution on the height and the width that you can get. And that's mainly it, really. The one thing I probably should point out is just a little bit more about my backing up. So I back my images up in two ways. So all my images are, I don't delete them from my SD cards until I know they backed up on my backup system in my studio. So I have a number of SD cards in, I think I've shown this before, in my Pelican case here. And I keep all my images on my SD cards until I know I've backed them up in my studio. And my backup on my studio is just using Time Capsule, and I have an external, I think it's 4 terabyte drive attached to my Time Capsule, which then backs up through my Apple system, basically. Yeah, and I also back up my images online as well. So I have 2 backups, one on-site, one off-site, and then I have all my external hard drives with my working files on as well. And that is pretty much it for my workflow. I hope this quick video has helped. Next week I'm going to be back out on the hills and the moors and in the trees, probably going to be raining, and I'm probably going to be getting wet. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
So afraid